Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wishwell Farms. My name is Jason, and in today's video, we're going to be harvesting green beans out of our final patch for 2025. We have 4 trial varieties that I have never grown on our farm before, and looking forward to checking them out and showing you what they look like. So this is a very small patch of green beans. We have 4 rows of Justify, and then I have 4 more rows of 3 varieties on this 500-foot section of field. We have 4 rows of Sanford, 4 rows of Jaguar, and at the north end, 4 rows of SVGG1317. So it doesn't have a name, it's just a number. I do want to mention that these 3 varieties over here, Sanford, Jaguar, and 1317, we're just going to call it that to keep it short, were given to me by Rupp Seeds to trial. So I didn't pay for these, and I just planted a very small 150-foot section of each variety to let them see how they did on my farm, and for me to trial and to show you how they did on our farm. So I purchased all of our vegetable seeds from Rupp Seeds in Wauseon, Ohio. It's in Northwest Ohio. Rupp is spelled R-U-P-P, and I will drop a link to their seed company down in the description box below. So before we get started, I also wanted to mention that we have been in serious drought conditions for the past 6 weeks. We are bone dry. I mean, you can see the cracks in the soil. We do not irrigate, so we rely on natural rainfall. And some of our late bean crops have definitely suffered. But I am very surprised to see that there are actual beans on here to harvest today. So I'm very pleasantly surprised that we're actually going to get something to harvest. So there are several things that I will be looking for in these new trial green beans, including the Justify variety that I did purchase because it was a new release this year and I wanted to try it out. I want to look at green bean placement on the plant. How high is it up in the plant to make machine harvesting easier? The other thing I'm going to look at is the color of the green beans. Are they light, are they dark, or are they a medium green? And then we're going to snap some open and we're going to taste them. We're going to see if they have a sweet taste. And then the final thing I want to look at is how well do they machine harvest? Will the beans easily be removed from, like the stem, the petiole that holds the clusters of green beans on the plant? I want individual beans. It's less work for us when we are sorting them, washing them, and packing them. So those are kind of the things I will be looking for out here today. Let's take a quick walk through here and put our eyeballs on these beans and see how they look. All right, so here is Justify. And this is probably the best section of the field right here that we're at. I can see that deer have been out here munching the tops. I mean, they are like clear cut across the top of the beans from deer. Probably because it's so dry and they like the sweet moisture that these beans provide. So I know the yields are not going to be very heavy because of how dry it is out there, but let's pick a couple of these beans and check them out. These probably could have been harvested last week. Hopefully they're not too ripe or have big beans in them. So for as dry as it is, they look fairly good. They're pretty straight for the most part. I mean, not all of them are. Let's break some of them open. Oh yeah, they still look good. I mean, I am so surprised that those are not white and dry inside. Those look very nice. And I would rank this color as a medium green. Maybe even slightly dark. Yeah, those are nice looking green beans. In a couple days, they will be too far gone. When you break them open, you want that nice watery look with no bean. They're not squishy, they're pretty solid, but not for long. I think a couple more days, these things would be too far gone. All right, let's taste them. Very sweet for a green bean. Those are excellent. I would rate that at like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 for sweetness. All right, next up we have Sanford. And these have suffered right here because of the dry weather. They're not very big and bushy, but I know we can still get some beans off of them. Okay, first impressions, really long and straight. This one's a little big, so I'm curious if it has a bean inside. It doesn't. So there's different sieve sizes of beans. I've never really understood the sieve size. That is a bigger green bean. That's okay. Doesn't bother me. It's just a characteristic I'm noticing. So these all look pretty good. It's good color. I'd say that's a medium green color. Long, straight pods. They look nice inside. Bean placement. Oh, there's one that's chewed up by some bugs. Bean placement seems average. I see some hanging down low. They're not touching the ground, but they're not real high in the plant. I did forget to mention over here on the Justify that the beans are higher in the plant, so I like that. They're all setting their pods high in the plant, which makes for great machine harvesting. Okay, I'm gonna taste the Sanford. A 9 out of 10, really sweet. I kind of have a feeling that all of the green beans are gonna taste very sweet today. It happens to a lot of vegetables. When you have drought conditions or you stop irrigating, the sugar levels intensify a little bit. They increase, the Brix levels increase. The Brix are the sugar levels. It's how you measure the sugar levels in fruits and vegetables. All right, let's go check out Jaguar. All right, here's a section of Jaguar. They look really healthy for this drought we're in right now, but they're in the lowest section of the field, right here beside the thick Justify section. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a better plant than Sanford or the 1317 down here. They're just in the lowest spot in the field where it probably laid wetter longer. So they have good color. The plants do anyway. And I'm noticing that the green beans hang lower on the plant. Look, those are touching the ground right there. See all the green beans touching the ground? So these are the biggest, healthiest plants in the whole field, yet the green beans are still the lowest of all the varieties we've looked at so far. All the tips of the green beans are down there touching the ground. That is not good, because if we had wet, humid July, August conditions and I was growing these beans and they were touching the mud, they would likely rot at the tips, or they would be muddier, dirtier beans that we would have to wash better. It would take longer to wash them and pack them. All right, let's pick a few of these and get a look at them close up and taste them. They're pretty green beans, really long and straight, and good color. They don't look any darker or lighter than the other ones I've already harvested. And they look excellent inside. No hollow cavities, no white showing yet, and no beans. I can just start to see the formation of a bean in this one. All right, let's taste these Jaguars. I can't really tell a difference. Maybe slightly less sweet than Justify and Sanford, but hardly noticeable. Very nice. Looking forward to see how these harvest. And finally, the SVGG 1317, we're gonna call them 1317. Heavy deer pressure out here. These things are all snipped off at the top by deer. You can see how high some of these beans are setting in the plant, but they're also bug eaten. I have not sprayed these beans at all. Something has been gnawing on that bean pretty good. When I start harvesting these, if I'm seeing a lot of bug damage on the beans, I will let these go. But I'm definitely gonna at least make a pass through one row to see how they look. All right, let's pick a few of these. There's not a lot of beans in these plants. I think these were affected by the drought more up here. It's a little higher spot in the field. More short, ugly beans, that aren't long like these are. I had to search for these long ones. These look really nice. I'd say it's a medium color, maybe slightly lighter than Jaguar, Sanford, and Justify. Oh, they look really nice inside. No bean. I think these might be just a couple days later in maturity, if I had to guess, because those look beautiful inside, just like what we want to see. And now for the taste test. An excellent bean flavor. If I compare these to the Jaguar that I just tried prior to this. About the same sweetness, but a cleaner, more flavorful green bean flavor that you would expect to taste. Sorry, I'm spitting beans out while I'm talking. So, very good. Not the sweetest, but one of the best bean flavors of the 4 we've tasted so far. And I don't really know how to describe that better. The bean flavor that was in the Jaguar, it was just a tad more bitter, astringent. Maybe partly because I'm eating them raw. But these are very tasty. I like these. All right, let's go get some harvesting done. If you're wanting to see more of the harvesting action from our Oxbow BH100 one-row bean harvester, I'm gonna drop some links down below for you to check out some other prior videos where we focus more on that machine. Today is more about the green beans. So I'll show you just a little bit of the machine, but if you want to see a lot of the harvesting action and the process we go through to wash and pack our green beans, check out the links down below. So I'm not going to be filming much of the harvesting today, but I will show you a little bit, and then we're going to hop off and look at the beans after each round. You'll have to excuse all the weeds in this section. We have a lot of mare's tail that got out of hand in this field. I didn't spray any kind of herbicide for post weed control after planting in this patch. So they got out of hand a little bit. Fortunately, we have some good patches that are pretty clean down there because these things do tend to wrap up on the picking head quite a bit. So there we go, the Oxbow BH100 one-row harvester. They feed in through the front here, and there's a spinning reel in there with a bunch of fingers like prongs that sweep the beans off the plants, knock them onto this conveyor along with all the leaves and stems and everything else. And then when they go underneath this section, this is a giant updraft fan. Sucks out all the lightweight material like leaves and anything that's not a green bean. The heavier green beans pass on by that, ride the lift, and into this melon bin. Normally, on a heavy day of picking, I don't use this. I have another person here helping me, and we use our 1.5 bushel picking tubs because they fill up like every minute or two. And you know, we'll pick maybe 15, and then we'll offload them into one of my box trucks and put another 15 empty tubs on and continue. This is only gonna hold like 12 to 15 bushels. And in between rounds, I'll have to jump off and level this all off because the beans will tend to want to pyramid up and plug the spout. So I've been asked many times in the past, why don't I just put a bin underneath there to pick them that way instead of using our little tubs? It's because that will fill up so quick. If I was on a normal harvest day during July and August, I'd be picking 50, 60, 70 bushels, and we'd have to fill up, you know, like 6 or 8 of these things, and I'd have to have a way to offload them. I'd have to have my forklift out here in the middle of the field and then load them up in a truck and then offload them back at the barn. So it's just much easier and quicker to have a second person riding back here swapping tubs out as the tubs fill and stacking them and sliding them right into our box truck. But for today's picking purposes, since we're on our final picking and it's only 8 rows, we'll probably, and that it's been a drought and there's not a lot of yield out there to harvest, I think this is going to hold most of them. All right, I just finished my first round of Justify. Let's see how they look. All right, as I expected, the yield is terrible because of the drought. Normally we would get this much in about 50 foot of row. I mean, this is probably, yeah, I'm seeing some bug damage too. Doggone it. We might have to sort these, I don't know. That's pretty bad. But I don't see a lot of it. Most of them look really nice. So we might just have to be careful when we put them out at the farmers markets to look for bug damage. There's a bad one. Yeah, this is probably 3 or 4 bushels, and normally we get 10 to 15 on a round. There's definitely some short and skinny beans in there and some breakage. You know, you shouldn't see too many pin beans like that. And I can change the suction speed and the amount of updraft with these baffles here, putting those down, and I can turn that wheel to speed this pulley up. So we're gonna put that back down a little bit. That'll create more updraft, more draw to pull out some of these little pin beans. I don't see any leaves, so that's good, but I'm seeing a lot of little junk in there that should not be there. But overall, the color and shape of the beans and the length of the beans look pretty good. All right, one final look at Justify before we move on to the other 3 trial varieties. Overall, they look just fine. I'm willing to give them a try again next year to go along with my other 2 favorite varieties, Valentino and Dark Horse. These are very similar looking to Valentino, but not near as dark as Dark Horse. So here's what I was talking about as far as the beans not being removed completely from the stem. The petiole, the calyx, I'm not sure what that part is called, but see how there's like a cluster there? That's not bad. And if I was seeing tons and tons of stems in there, actually now that I'm looking down in here, I'm seeing more than I like. On Valentino, all the beans get removed. I never have stems in Valentino. I'm looking down in here and I can see stems. There's a nice cluster right there. Well, I guess it was my 3. I don't like to see a bunch of these stems. So that's one of the main things I look for when using this harvester. And that's why I have stuck with Valentino for the last decade, because of how well they pick with this 1-row bean harvester. I've found many varieties over the years that I really, really liked. The way the beans looked, the color, how easily they picked, but they just weren't getting separated as well as Valentino was from that little stem or petiole or calyx, whatever it's called. All right, time to move on to the next one, Sanford. Oh, one more thing I want to look at before we start picking Sanford over here is how well did these pick from the plants? How well did the beans get removed? Now I'm looking down through here, I'm not seeing any beans left on the plants. Oh, there's a couple. Well, it was on the ground. So very few. So Justify picks very good. It gets removed from the plant good. Just doesn't always get separated from the little stem. All right, this is Sanford. Let's go try it out. Okay, I just finished the 4 rows of Sanford, and they were not good because of how the drought hurt them. I mean, there was literally only about a bushel in there to harvest, but I think there was enough here to take a look at. So this little pile right here on top, about a bushel and a half or so, is Sanford. I think the beans are longer and bigger compared to Justify, but very similar. I mean, I can't tell a difference in the color between Sanford and Justify. Identical. There might be a slight more sheen to Justify. Sanford doesn't have much of a sheen, I'm noticing. Kind of a more of a duller green, medium green. Now, because of the drought conditions, I don't think I'm getting a true test on how these beans would actually perform if we had irrigation. I mean, even looking at these soybeans right here next to my green beans, they're about 18 inches or 20 inches tall right here, and more brown, you know, more dead leaves. They're ready to cut just about. And then you get over here, the beans are 3 foot tall with green leaves on them. Totally different, just like my green beans. So next up is Jaguar, and I have a feeling they look a lot healthier and fuller because of the richer ground that laid wet longer here, that wasn't affected so much by the drought. Let's go check them out. Let's take a look at how well the Jaguar picked. These are the ones that had beans down low to the ground. See that right there? Look at that. 3 beautiful beans that were missed. I'm seeing a lot more down low. I had my head about as low as I could get it too. I mean, for the most part, the plants look picked pretty clean, but I'm seeing beans down at the bottom. Yeah, quite a few were missed. And here's what they look like. Slightly darker than Sanford. Here's Sanford right here, which looked very similar to Justify. Jaguar is definitely darker. Not a lot, not as dark as Dark Horse. There's some that didn't get separated from the stem. There's a big old grasshopper that got harvested. That's probably what's munching on these beans. I haven't really seen too many cucumber beetles out here. Mexican bean beetles, whatever they are. A little bit of dirt here and there. Overall, I really like the Jaguar variety. I thought the plant health looked really good despite there being a drought. I just wish they set their pods higher in the plant and not so low to the ground. But overall, I think I still like it better than the Sanford variety. Okay, let's check out SVGG 1317. Now, because these green beans were set high in the plant, I'm assuming they picked really clean. And as I look down through here, I don't even see a green bean. Well, there's one. These plants picked very clean. There wasn't a lot of beans out here though. These really suffered from the lack of water. I kind of wish I would have done this trial earlier in the season when growing conditions were better. You know, I didn't know we were going to have a drought this year. You never know, obviously. So I realized this probably wasn't the best representation of these 4 varieties that I just showed you today, but it's the best I could do with what I have. I don't irrigate my green beans or my sweet corn. We rely completely on natural rainfall. But considering how dry it has been, I'm pretty happy to get almost a bin full of beans on this little dinky patch we just harvested. Let's take a look at this 1317 up close. It's this little pile right here, and I'm guessing we only got about a bushel and a half, maybe. Not much. A lot of shorter beans, and I think they're a little lighter colored. So, you know, I don't know if that is normal for them or if it's just because they're suffering from the lack of water. Probably a little bit of both. So I just thought of something that I probably should have mentioned in the very beginning of the video. This crop was planted on July 20th, and today is September 16th. And they were planted with a John Deere 7000 4-row corn planter. And I wanted to give a special thanks to Rupp Seeds for giving me these 3 varieties to trial on our farm. Don't forget to check out the Rupp Seeds link down below in the description. Get yourself one of their catalogs and consider using them for all of your seeds for your garden or fields in 2026. This is where we're going to wrap this one up today, folks. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all again next time down on the farm.